be great.
Okay.
All right. I
Yes.
hope. Yeah. I guess we are live. Are we
Yes.
live out there? I need somebody in the chat there to see if we're live. This is our first time going live on YouTube. So
Oh,
yeah. So we're
wow.
we're good. Yeah, no. I got the all, thumbs up from our producers here. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited. You're now kicking it with Brother Smalls, and we have a special guest with us, Dr. Amina Goodwin. She's a physician in internal medicine and infectious disease. I heard her speak maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I just was amazed, with all the information that she provided. And then she has a really interesting concept that I wanted to talk about. Again, everyone wants to shed some pounds, but she was talking about, hey, you want to shed some pounds, eat more to lose weight. So I really can't wait, and I'm so glad that she's here. Hey, Doc, how are you?
Hey, Amara. I'm great. Thanks for having me, and good evening to all the viewers who are joining us now and later.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Again, the hope you had a great day. I heard you a couple of weeks ago, and I marveled at the information that you provided. But weight is something that people are really sensitive about. I mean, that the diet industry is like a billion dollar industry, so the people are spending money on exercise equipment and everything else. But you really kind of focused on what people can do every single day at their kitchen table.
Yes. That's what I do. So again, as you said, I'm a practicing physician here in the hospital, and I like to say I have two roles. One of them is to sort of help people get over acute problems requiring hospitalization and give them hope for a future of better health. Okay.
Mhm.
And then the second role is just in helping people maintain or achieve and maintain that health in the outpatient or in the home setting. And particularly, I like to help people to lose weight by eating more. And essentially, when your weight is close to optimal or optimal, it drastically decreases your chance of a whole host of lifestyle diseases. And a lot of times people think that, which is true to an extent, there is a medicine or pill for most things, but unfortunately, pills just take care of symptoms for the most part, sort of external manifestation of what's going on inside. And the more pills the more you continue to sort of do the things causing the problem, the more pills you have to take, the more pills. I like to say sometimes to my patients, and well, patients, because those are who I treat with medications, more pills, more problems. All right.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I sort of help people to get to the root cause with food so that they can eventually get off some of these pills or not need the pills in the future and not need to require my services in the hospital. People
No,
don't realize how much power they have with their own
mhm,
hands and themselves and decisions.
mhm.
And I just like people to take back control of their own health. And I like to sort of get people to understand that they can do that. So that's kind of in a nutshell, you know.
No, people need to hear that. I mean, because I got obviously a major issue with obesity in this country. I was reading something that you wrote the other day about even diabetes, and something that you really was really pained you, as far as diabetes being something you can prevent it.
Yes.
I think you said about it was 3% 100 years ago, and now it's like 30% of the population, and it's something that's preventable.
Yeah, it's absolutely preventable. He said almost three quarters of the population has, some figures say 80% have some sort of metabolic derangement. Metabolism is basically just the regular functionings of the body, right?
Mhm.
And three quarters of the population is overweight, right? Up to a third or maybe more by now is actually obese, right? Which is being severely overweight. And for diabetes, diabetes basically, or type 2 diabetes, because type 1 is its own sort, in its own different category. That's like autoimmune, the body kind of fights against the pancreas. And usually in young people, though some adults can get type 1 diabetes. But when I say diabetes, generally, I mean type 2 diabetes, which is the sort of lifestyle one, the one that we really have a lot of control in terms of how we eat. And 3/4 of people have some metabolic derangements. A lot of people are pre-diabetic, which is the stage before needing medications. And a lot of people are pre-diabetic for 5-10 years, right, without knowing. And then even becoming diabetic, they are diabetic for several years without knowing. So it's like a massive problem, and in many cases unknown, undiagnosed. And the longer you stay undiagnosed, even with pre-diabetes, damage is being done to the body, like microscopic damage. And over years and years, this microscopic damage accumulates. And, you know, because diabetes actually damages all parts of the body, it's a vascular disease. And we have blood vessels supplying all over our body. So diabetes can damage all organs of the body everywhere, because everything is supplied by blood vessels, right? So it's really a big problem. And too many people are finding out about it when it's, you know, it's too late. Okay, so that's why, because it's damages everywhere, that's the big impact. And that's why I try to sort of sensitize people about this condition. And then just the complications can be so devastating, from all the amputations and kidney failure requiring dialysis. I mean, I literally deal with these problems every single day up to today.
Yeah. I saw your YouTube video about a gentleman who I guess had diabetes for several years but didn't know anything about it. And I know that there's a test. I saw something. I heard something on the radio where they say if you weigh this much, there's like 5 questions you need to ask yourself.
Yes.
You know, can you go over that?
So basically, that's metabolic syndrome. So metabolic syndrome is like the company, the group of disorders that together indicate that your body is kind of in metabolic disarray to an extent. And if you answer yes to any of these conditions, and the more conditions you answer yes to, the higher your chance is of having, you know, problems, diabetes and so on, right? So essentially, it's if you are overweight clinically, like when we say overweight, we mean like classically body mass index greater than 25, right? If your waist to hip circumference is too big, so for men, greater than 0.9, for women, greater than 0.8. And basically, it's just taking a tape measure and measuring the smallest part of your waist and then the largest part of your hip, and dividing it, and there's a ratio. And these are numbers, basically you can look them, you can Google these things easily, right? But having a high waist to hip circumference, basically if your belly is too big compared to your hips, then it means that you have too much fat around your waistline. If your triglycerides are high, that's one of the bad types of cholesterol. If you have high blood pressure, and if you have high blood sugar, right? So if you answer yes to any of those conditions, and the more you answer yes to, the more likely you are to have metabolic derangements, metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome means that you have higher chances of like heart disease, cardiovascular disease, strokes, and things like that. So it's pretty serious. And these are things too, like some of them, even one of the things I say, weight is an obvious one, but sometimes people have a normal weight by the definition, like on the scale. But your waist, if your waist is too big compared to your hips, then it means that your weight, you have more of the bad type of fat, right? And we call it visceral fat because it's the fat around the abdominal organs. So that fat around the abdominal organs and within, especially in the liver. Fatty liver is one of the things that go hand in hand with this metabolic syndrome. And all these conditions, the common thread linking them together is insulin resistance. Right. And what causes ultimately insulin resistance is just kind of bombarding the body with large amounts of sugar, glucose, but let's just say sugar over time. Okay. And, sugar is an acceptable thing in society. And but it's addictive, like hard drugs. They talk about sugar being more addictive than cocaine. Thing about sugar is that high levels, like the body likes to maintain nice, stable levels of
Mhm.
sugar, of glucose. I'll just say sugar because everybody knows what sugar is, but it really is glucose. But for layman's terms and for easy understanding, I'll just say sugar, right?
Sure.
Body likes nice homeostasis, steady state when it comes to sugar, because sugar in high concentrations is
Yeah.
actually toxic to the cells of the body. And so to keep that nice homeostasis, the nice stable levels, the body is
Mhm.
always going to try to produce insulin, the hormone from the pancreas, to keep the sugar down. The more sugar you eat, the more insulin your body is going to try to produce to keep the sugar down, right? But and this was my problem in the past, where I was pummeling my body with lots of sugar from juices and cookies and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But the more
Mhm.
that you do, the more you produce insulin. And then when your body chronically is exposed to insulin, afterward it just gets tired. It's like, I'm tired of this insulin. It's bombarding me too much. And so it just
Yeah.
it locks down, like the cells lock down and say, like, you're troubling me too much. I don't want to hear from you. And so the cells become numb to insulin. But the thing is, the sugar is still high because you're still eating all the sweet things, right? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
the body tries to produce even more insulin. So the insulin levels go high. And so it's this vicious cycle. And the problem with insulin, too, is that it's like a pro growth, like pro storage, fat storage hormone, right? And it
Yeah. Yeah.
causes growth and stimulation of other things. It causes retention of fluids. It promotes high blood pressure, causes fat storage. It causes storage of fat into the liver. And then that also even contributes to the whole resistance. So it's just this whole vicious metabolic cycle.
No, we're here with Dr. Goodwin, and she's brilliant, as you guys can hear. And you're also a health coach. So
Yes.
because again, you kind of went over some things that, obviously this is your language, this is what you do every single day. But to the layperson, it's like, what do I do? And how, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about being a health coach and how you start to kind of get people to pay attention to their health and well-being?
So one of the things I like to sort of I like to start with sugar to an extent, but because I realize that a lot of people don't even want to hear about that, because most people, if they're not diabetic, they want to hear about sugar. They don't think they need to do that, right? So I try to say, okay, how about let's increase the amount of vegetables. Again, they don't like to hear about vegetables. But the wonderful thing about vegetables is the fiber content. And
Mhm.
even if you eat a lot of things that might not be the best for you, if you have a lot of fiber in that from a lot of wholesome, unprocessed vegetables, remarkably, that fiber can actually trap some of the bad stuff in the intestines. And so you don't have the same big
Mhm.
impact from all that
Mhm.
sugar and refined
Mhm.
starch as if you did not have it with fiber. So one of the
Mhm.
first things I like to do is sort of encourage people, my clients, like I've worked with coach clients before, outside of the medical practice, I coach people, and we try to get them to incorporate more vegetables into the diet, right? A lot of
Mhm.
times too, people are kind of cut it, like restricting, like thinking, oh my, I just need to have a tiny amount of breakfast. I just need to have
Right.
a little bit of
Right.
oatmeal. I can't eat too much. I have to keep it at 100 calories. And so
Yeah.
then I sort of explained to them this whole thing of that being like starch basically is sugar, just in another form. And when you're just giving your body sugar, it is starving for the other beneficial things, including protein and healthy fat, and also fiber, which we need to help prevent overburdening the body with sugar, but also the good bacteria in our intestines need fiber as well. So I talk
Mhm.
about what they can have more of. So the vegetables with that fiber, more protein, healthy fats, right? So
Mhm.
using the oatmeal example, which is one of my favorite examples, because oatmeal is like the health food, right? They say it's
Right.
heart healthy. It's on like American Heart Association flyers or whatever, right? But oatmeal
Yeah.
is starch, right? And most people have a bowl of oatmeal and they'll be hungry by 10 o'clock, right? Now, compared to if instead of just a plain bowl of oatmeal, because you want to keep it to 100 calories, you add stuff to that. You add a bunch of berries to it. You add some chopped nuts, right, to it. You
Mhm.
sprinkle in some flax seeds. And so you have even more. And I remember telling a lady once about, just having more. Like, I'm like, you're not eating enough for breakfast. Like, you're going to be starving by 10. Then you're going to go and have something, sweet, like to drink or snack bar. And then it's like the cycle continues because every 2 hours you're eating and you're not giving the body that break, right? Have more with all your meals, right? More
Mhm,
variety, and
mhm.
satisfy yourself for many more hours. And then your body gets to kind of recover and recuperate between all the meals. So I kind of like to focus on what people should have more of, because a lot of times people feel like, oh no, you're telling me I can't have this, I can't have that. In truth
Right.
and fact, I mean, you can probably have anything you want, but you just can't be having all these things every day. Like ice cream was not meant to be had every day at large amounts at a time, etc. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Yeah, yeah. No, I heard you also talk about being like people really have to inspect their what they bring home, what they actually purchase at the store, because again, a lot of the sugars and bad things are kind of hidden. Can you talk a
Oh,
little bit
yes.
about that?
A lot of it is hidden. So another thing that all of you, the people listening, everybody should do is start getting to know what exactly you're taking into your body. Don't just take for granted that, oh, the label says it's non-GMO and gluten free and so on. Don't just take at
Yeah.
face value these labels. You need to know exactly what you're taking in. Is it a bunch of things that like chemical sounding names, right? Even for sugar, for example, there are like over 80, almost 100 different names for sugar, right? So clearly the food companies realize that sugar is bad for people. People are getting onto us. They're realizing sugar is bad. Let's find another name to call it, right? So there's all
Mhm.
these different names, dextrose, invert syrup, invert sugar, fruit juice concentrate, like so many different names for this thing, right? So you have to start sensitizing yourself, becoming an informed shopper. Also, like something like refined, enriched wheat flour, right?
Mhm.
Super, super refined. It's all
Mhm.
the beneficial fiber is removed, the minerals and vitamins are removed, and so what they do, they re-add it. But the sad thing is that when you re-add manufactured vitamins and minerals, oftentimes your body's not able to utilize it as when these minerals, these nutrients are present in the natural form in food, right? So look
Sure.
at your labels. The longer the label, the more processed the food is usually, right? The more
Mhm.
names listed in the ingredient, with ingredients that you don't recognize, it just sounds like something from a chemistry lab. Again, the more processed it is, right? A lot of these processed things as well, like
Yeah.
because our bodies were not really meant to ingest these things. A lot of people have sensitivities, and so a lot of the symptoms and just nagging complaints that people have are related to sensitivities to some of these chemicals. And you really would never know, only like by chance. Like even me, I found out by chance about a sensitivity that I had. So many medical problems nowadays, so many people on lots of different medications. And if you really look at it and try to really clean up how you eat, people, and I've seen where people like are amazed at how much better they feel, not from taking medications, not necessarily from exercising, but just from incorporating more wholesome real foods and minimizing these super processed foods that just have a bunch of chemicals and not much nutrition.
Hey, Doc, we got a couple of questions here. One question is, so is a sugar fast good? And if so, how long should the fast be?
I think I think a sugar fast is good, and the sugar fast can be forever because really we we do not need, we can survive without sugar, right? In fact, the
Right.
body can make sugar, our bodies can make glucose, the liver can make glucose, but we also get sugar from foods, not like there's table sugar, which we add sugar, and high fructose corn syrup. That's another whole thing. But we get sugar from fruits, we get sugar from vegetables, right? So we're
Mhm.
getting sugar in our diet. So we can do a sugar fast and be totally fine. I think a sugar fast is an excellent idea. People talk about intermittent fasting, but my preference is to have avoidance of added sugar and even refined starches for long periods during the day. I think that's more doable than intermittent fasting.
No, I appreciate your coaching, and I heard you say one time how folks need to really understand that it's going to take a process. I think you liken it to a baby kind of learning different,
Oh,
how to taste different foods and getting
yes.
used to different foods. How impactful that is. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, because a lot of time, and again, I learned so much from my patients, right? And it's because of different interactions with patients that helps me to kind of come up with these ways of putting things. But basically, like I had this patient, he's like, but doc, I don't like, he's diabetic, lost his leg and so on. But doc, I don't like vegetables. Like, so he just couldn't see himself eating vegetables. And I said, you're not going to like something unless you start eating it. Because a lot of people just say, I don't like it. I'm not going to try it. I'm not going to eat it, period. Right? When
Yep.
babies are born, right, they're getting milk, formula, etc. When they turn 1, they start getting teeth. You have to feed them food. They don't like it. Anybody who has had a child knows that the child will spit out the things when you first give it to them. You give it to them again, they spit it out and they keep spitting it out, right? But you keep
Right.
giving them because you know that they need it and you know that
That's
they
right.
will grow to like it, right? And sometimes
That's
you have
right.
to
Yeah.
tweak the way you prepare it, change the type because there's variety of vegetables, variety of fruits. Some people like some people don't like others. So with a baby, you try different things and eventually they grow to like most of the things, right? It's the
Mhm.
same for us as well. You cannot like something if you do not have it. If you've never had it, you're never going to like it. You have to start tasting it. Now, a lot of times too, with the refined foods, they are literally designed to be like super tasty, addictive, hyper palatable, like you want them and you want to keep eating more. Real
Mhm.
foods, unprocessed foods, are not like that. They're more textured. You kind of have to chew them more. And a lot of times it's an acquired taste. Even things like meat, like wild meat, it's an acquired taste because it's a little tougher than the meat that they produce, like in the like commercially, right, where it has like a softer taste, right? So
Mhm.
you have to acquire the taste for these real unprocessed, more wholesome foods, and you can only acquire that taste when you keep just eating it and believing that, oh, your taste buds are going to get used to it, and also find different ways of preparing them. Like the same patient, I said, butter is going to make most things taste good. Put some butter on your vegetables, okay? So you just try different things.
No, that's really important and a good tip there. You also I mean, and that's why I think the coaching is huge because you had mentioned something about our celebrations, right? We kind of celebrate everything. Oh, it's Thursday. Oh, thank God thank God it's Friday. It's like we celebrate everything.
Uh-huh.
But oftentimes our celebrations are we celebrate with food. And
Yes.
sometimes we celebrate with foods that are very, very sweet. And
Yes.
you kind of address that. I also saw that you had talked about, well, as I travel around the country, I see, different parts of the country and, different parts of the country, supermarkets and places where you can get fresh food are plentiful. And then other places it's not. There are things like food deserts in different urban areas
Hmm.
where I recall going to I don't know if I forget which state I was in, but I went to a supermarket and I couldn't believe, like, within the first, when I was walking in the store, you had alcohol, you had sweets, you had, cigarettes, and it was like before you got to fruits or anything like that, it was way, it was just, I mean, I don't know. It's sometimes, food choice and being able to kind of get to making the right choices are sometimes difficult for folks because of the environment they live in.
Yes, I agree with that. To the first point about celebrations, I do
Yeah.
agree that we all, we use food as a form of celebration, and I agree with that. And I was at a celebration this weekend, and there was food, and I had some cake because it was my sister's birthday, so of course I'm going to have cake, right? But I think
Mhm.
that the great thing about doing good most of the time, eating well most of the time, is that you have your body in a good state. We
Mhm.
There's this term called metabolically fit, based off metabolically flexible. Basically, you can handle the sugar when it's coming to you intermittently, occasionally, compared to if it's happening every day, then your body gets numb to it and locks down and cannot handle it, right? But when you
Mhm.
give yourself a break and let your body be able to handle it, right? Do good most of the time and then cherish the celebrations, enjoy the celebrations, and your body is able to handle it because you were bombarding it all the time. About the food desert thing, yeah, that's a thing that, you know, I've heard about. And actually, like, I live in a small town in East Mississippi, and I have to say, when we came here 9 years ago, we did not have as many options as there are now. We didn't really have, really what we have is Walmart, like 3 Walmarts and 1 Winn-Dixie. Well, we had 2 Winn-Dixies back then, but the options were just so limited. And sometimes we had to go out of town to other places where there were bigger supermarkets to get organic foods and more options. But it's been remarkable how over the past 9 years, and I know a lot of people don't set foot near Walmart. They don't want to hear anything about Walmart. But sometimes, like you said, in some places, that's all you have. And where we are, like, that's almost all we have, right? So we have to go to Walmart. But yeah, what you have to do, like, if in some places, I mean, I don't know, they're farms, sometimes farmers markets, local butchers and so on. Like, people just have to get creative when there are fewer options, like we did. Sometimes travel out. We have a farmers market on weekends where people come together from the different villages or towns or whatever. So you just have to get creative. I think where there's a will, there's a way. When you decide that you are going to eat for your health, right? You will find a way to do it. You can order things online. They're different, like, subscription boxes where you can even get meat, like fresh meat. I guess they come packaged in ice and so on. You can get wild caught fish, so many things. You can even get frozen vegetables, frozen fruit, and so on. So where there's a will, there's a way. And so yes, it's tough for some people. And yes, you know, when poverty is an issue, it really gets difficult. But ultimately, I think we all have room for improvement, and we just make small amounts of improvement the best that we can.
Yeah, making those improvements and, you know, taking a little bit more time. I mean, we have such a microwave society, right? We want it now. We want it now. And I think just taking a little bit more time as you're preparing food for your family, for your loved ones, think is a major key.
Yes, I agree. Yes. You know, they talk about how people spend 2 hours on watching TV and maybe another 2 hours almost on social media. And so that's 4 hours plus or minus depending. And so we can make time. Even I'm super busy, but I know that there's some time that I waste. And so we can all make a little extra time, but we make time to do the things that are important. And if we've deemed it unimportant, we're just not going to make time for it, you know? So.
Right. No, it's good. Thank you so much, Doc. I had a question for you. I wanted to know from your perspective, what are 3 myths that people believe that are just kind of hindering or quite honestly jeopardizing their health?
One of the big ones is that fat is bad, and that they have to choose fat-free everything, fat-free milk, fat-free everything. And that's like the saddest myth ever. Even in medical school, when 21 years ago, they told us that coconut is bad, avocado is bad, eggs are bad because all these things have so much saturated fat, right? So that's one of the biggest myths. And of course, now we know fat isn't bad, sugar is the bad guy, right? Not fat. Basically, one of my sort of sayings that, you know, I like to mention is that you shouldn't fear naturally occurring fat. Instead, you should fear unnaturally fat-free food. So when the food has been, you know, tampered with and they've taken off fat, such as milk, like milk is a good example, fat-free milk, right? They take out all that fat. And so all you're left with is a lot of starch, because milk has milk sugars, which is like, well, sugars, right? And you have a little bit of protein. But what fat does is that it slows down the digestion and absorption of whatever sugar you might be getting into your system, whether it be from starch, refined starch, or just plain added sugar, right? So the fat is bad thing is an unfortunate myth. And when people realize and feel comfortable about the fact that, hey, I can have some butter. I mean, you're never going to overdo anything, right? But when people realize they can have some butter, they can have their cheese, they can have cream in their coffee and so on, and they just feel so liberated. Another myth, what's another myth? Another myth is that, oh, you know, all you need to do to lose weight is exercise, right? Oh, just exercise and lose weight. But, you know, it's not just exercise. And one of the things I don't know who said this first, but basically they say you cannot outrun a bad diet, right? You cannot outrun a bad way of eating. So if you're eating all these things and sort of stimulating fat storage constantly throughout the day and putting in all these sort of toxic additives that the body has to struggle to excrete, right? Running in the gym, exercising, and so on is just not going to help you that much. And then another myth, what's another myth? Oh my, I don't know if I'm going to be able to think of a third myth right now. Probably like that eating less. Yeah, eating less. Actually, that's a huge one. Just thinking, oh my, I can't, I have to cut my calories down to 1,500 or 1,200, calories, right? Eating less. What eating less does is that it leaves you feel like you feel lack of energy. You have no energy. Your body kind of goes into restriction mode, which is almost like starvation mode, depending on how much you restrict. You get all sluggish, tired, and nobody can keep up with that. And so ultimately, this whole restriction thing never is sustainable, and people end up starting to eat again, and then your body's in this restriction starvation mode where it's holding on to everything because it doesn't know when it's gonna go into restriction or famine mode again. And so when you give up and start eating again, people gain more weight, right? So they gain more and then they do it again, and this just awful cycle when what you need to do is not restrict calories, not restrict fat, but put more wholesome, real foods. And believe it or not, too, one thing, I don't think I mentioned this, but when you have fiber, like lots of fiber in your diet, you can decrease the absorption of sugar and some of the things that you eat by up to 30%. So a lot of the stuff that you're eating, it's like a natural way of restricting the whatever your body is getting, like the calories or whatever, right? Because we eat not just for ourselves, our bodies, but we eat, again, for the good bacteria in our intestines. And the good bacteria are important because they help with manufacturing some of the, vitamins that we need, and digestion in general, and just regulating our mood and everything. Gut bacteria and gut health is super important and contributes to our overall health. So yeah, eating fiber can decrease the amount of food you absorb by 30%. That's remarkable. And that's better than any diet pill.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and again, like I said, we're here with Dr. Goodwin, and she's just a font of excellent information on health and wellness. Hey, Doc, what are you working on now, and how can people stay in touch with what you're doing?
So yes, I'm always working on a lot of things, but anyway, one of the exciting things that I started doing this year was a challenge. It's called the Eat More, Weightless Challenge, and basically it's a 5-day live challenge where I go through and show people how to choose all the good foods, right, that will help them feel better and by extension lose weight, because they won't be having all the sort of processed foods, right? So I have them understand not just what to eat, but why they're eating those things, what those foods do, because when people understand what is happening, and we break it down into like a nice understandable way, it's not all sciencey and so on. So anyway, I get people to understand why certain choices are better, right? And it's a 5-day thing where we go through different aspects of eating, and that's kind of one things I do. I've run the challenge twice already. I don't have a set date for the next time, but I will be running it again before the end of the year. And just generally, I don't do one-on-one coaching. At least I'm not doing that right now. I have I have one resource active right now. I have others. In fact, I'm about to drop another resource for whoever's interested. Basically 7 breakfast foods to avoid unless you want fat to stick to you like glue. So that's going to be a resource that's going to show up in my link soon, this week.
Sure. No, I want to be able to make available to my network and the people who are viewers all the things that you're doing. So, Doc, you definitely have to let us know what you're doing. Want to make people aware. We like to inform, uplift, elevate, and inspire here with Brother Smalls. And I have one more question for you, Doc. Will you come back on the show?
Sure. I like chit chat. One of my favorite things to do is actually talking to people, and that's why I love medicine so, because I get to talk to a whole host of different people every single day, and I learn something every day from my patients. So I would love to come back on your show.
That reminded me, I wanted to ask you, why medicine? Did you always want medicine? Did you always want to be in medicine? Did you always want to
Yeah,
help people?
according to my parents, I decided that I was going to be a doctor very young. I think, according to them, maybe I was 6 or 7. I saw a man with his hand amputated, and
Yeah.
I asked them, like, what's wrong with his, like, wow, what's wrong with his hand? And they told me he was amputated. And I said, well, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor so that I can help to put back people's hands. That, that's the story for my parents. Now, I'm not a surgeon. I don't like cutting.
Yes,
But
yes.
I love the field that I'm in because I can really help people get hope. Like, people are always so afraid, which is understandable in the hospital, and doctors come across as a little scary and stiff. And so
Mhm.
I love to be able to put people at ease and give them hope. And because when people have hope, they get better more compared to people who feel like, oh my goodness, it's over, and they're like all dejected, and that negative energy kind of impacts their recovery. So yeah, I like, now there's all this talk about, burnout, physician burnout. And I've probably had times, on and off in my career where I was, tired, and I just make certain shifts. Fortunately, I have been able, or have felt empowered to make
No,
shifts.
no. Have you been able to make the shifts? Because I saw one thing where you were like, I mean, you did like 12-hour days for like 7 days straight, and
Yeah.
it was something like zany, hours. I mean, how do you unwind? And do you kind of
Yeah, yeah.
incorporate that?
I feel like I'm a workaholic, and I, like, when I came to Mississippi. I'm from the Caribbean originally. For those people who are wondering, hey, where's that accent from? I'm from a small island called Antigua, and I came up here because the island is so small. I was just so bored, I guess, because I'm a workaholic. So when I came up here, I worked really hard, covered many places, the only infectious disease specialist for, like, 100 miles or whatever. But then I had my son, who's now 5. But when I had my son 5 years ago, I realized that, oh my goodness, like, I cannot do all this. Like,
Mhm,
literally, I, like, was feeling the negative impact on my body and my health. It
mhm.
happens to all of us, right? And so I
Sure,
had to make the switch. And so I cut back and decided to serve one facility rather than all the facilities. And
sure.
so I've been doing that for the past 3.5 years. But again, like, my son, he's big and he has activities. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, that stretch you're talking about was like 11 days, and it's these 12-hour shifts. And sometimes it's more than 12, where you're like, here, and I'm a perfectionist. So I'm like working all the time. Like, I'm not like chatting with people except my
Sure.
patients.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been doing that, but now, again, I feel the need. So I like, I realize, fortunately, I realize it takes a while sometimes for us to realize this, but I realize that we are the ones who have to make choices and decisions for ourselves. Like, nobody's going to make decisions for us. Nobody's going to tell us to do what's best for us. Like, we literally have to decide that we are going to do it, right? And
Mhm.
so fortunately, I am empowered to do that. And so, yeah, I'm about to kind of go back to practicing only infectious diseases. And
Mhm.
that will give me time, actually, to do some of the other things I
Sure.
like to do, because I feel like in the hospital we can do so much. And
Mhm.
most people don't end up in the hospital until it's too late anyway. But I want to be able to reach people, on a larger scale, and help them avoid hospitalizations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. So you see why I invited Dr. Goodwin? You see why I did that, right? Well, thank you so much, Doctor, again, for coming on the show. I can't wait for you to come back on. Please let us know what you're doing. We definitely want to make our viewership aware of all the things that you're doing. Is there anything else you want to say before we say goodnight?
Not really, but just to tell everybody to, you have the power. It's in your hands. You are in control of your health, nobody else, right? Not the government, not anybody else. It is you, okay? And so you
That's
need to
right.
start paying attention little by little, small steps, right? And make a
Mhm.
decision that you're going to maintain your health, um, as best as you can, especially with food, and less likely with medications, unless, like, it's necessary. Obviously, everybody's situation is different, and your doctor will tell you what's best for you. But still, try to maintain some amount of control or involvement in your care.
All right, you heard from the doctor. All right, you guys got to follow her. You got to like her. You got to, follow up on those instructions. Right, determine how you want to live your life. This has been a blast. Thank you again for your graciousness and being able to share with our viewership. All right, guys, I'm gonna
Yes.
say good night.
Good
Enjoy the rest of
night.
your evening. Smile and remember, every heartbeat is grace. Cherish life and spread love, y'all. Peace.
Thanks for having me. Good night.
You got it. Thank you.
Okay.